There, just to linger a little bit on the demonization, and to bring Ann Coulter into the picture, which I recommend people should listen to your conversation with her. I haven't listened to her much, but she had this thing where she's clearly admires and respects you as a human being, and she's basically saying you're one of the good ones. And this idea that you had this brilliant question of like, what does it mean to be an American?
Mm-hmm.
And she basically said, not you, Vivek. But she said, well, maybe you, but not people like you. So that whole kind of approach to immigration, I think, is really anti-meritocratic.
And maybe even anti-American.
Anti-American,
actually. Yeah. So I want to confront this directly because it is a popular current on the American right. And the reason I'm not picking on Ann Coulter specifically is I think actually it's a much more widely shared view, and I just give her at least credit for willing to articulate it, a view that the blood and soil is what makes for your American identity, your genetic lineage. And I just reject that view. I think it's anti-American. I think what makes for an American identity is your allegiance, your unabiding allegiance to the founding ideals of this country, and your willingness to pledge allegiance to those ideals. So those are two different views. I think that there is a view on the American right now that says that we're not a creedal nation, that our nation is not about a creed. It's about a physical place and a physical homeland. I think that view fails on several accounts. Obviously, we're a nation. Every nation has to have a geographic space that it defines as its own. So obviously, we are, among other things, a geographic space. But the essence of the United States of America, I think, is the common creed, the ideals that hold that common nation together. Without that, a few things happen. First of all, American exceptionalism becomes impossible, and I'll tell you why. Every other nation is also built on the same idea. Most nations have been built on common blood and soil arguments, genetic stock of, Italy or Japan would have a stronger national identity than the United States in that case because they have a much longer standing claim on what their genetic lineage really was. The ethnicity of the people is far more pure in those contexts than in the United States. So that's the first reason. American exceptionalism becomes impossible. The second is there's all kinds of contradictions that then start to emerge. If your claim on American identity is defined based on how long you've been here, well, then the Native Americans would have a far greater claim of being American than somebody who came here on the Mayflower or somebody who came here afterwards. Now, maybe that blood and soil view is, no, it's not quite the Native Americans. You only have to start at this point and end at this point. So on this view of blood and soil identity, it has to be, okay, you couldn't have come before a certain year, then it doesn't count. But if you came after a certain year, it doesn't count either. That just becomes highly uncompelling as a view of what American national identity actually is, versus my view that American national identity is grounded on whether or not you pledge allegiance to the ideals codified in the Declaration of Independence and actualized in the U.S. Constitution. And, it's been said, some of my friends on the right have said things like, people will not die for a set of ideals. People won't fight for abstractions or abstract ideals. I actually disagree with that. The American Revolution basically disproves that. The American Revolution was fought for anything over abstract ideals that said that, we believe in self-governance and free speech and free exercise of religion. That's what we believe in the United States, which was different from old world England. So I do think that there is this brewing debate on the right. And do I disagree like hell with Ann Coulter on this? Absolutely. And did I take serious issue with some of the things she told me? Absolutely. But I also believe that she had the stones to say, if I may say it that way, the things that many on the right believe, but haven't quite articulated in the way that she has. And I think we need to have that debate in the open. Now, personally, I think most of the conservative movement actually is with me on this, but I think it's become a very popular counter-narrative in the other direction to say that, your vision of American identity is far more physical in nature. And to me, I think it is still ideals-based in nature. And I think that that's a good debate for the future for us to have in the conservative movement. And I think it's going to be a defining feature of, what direction the conservative movement goes in the future.